So if you're, I think the flights pretty much range from about anywhere from, just depending on when you go. Of course, if you go during Carnival and New Year's, there's going to be more traffic, so the flight's going to be more expensive. So you're probably going to spend anywhere from $500 to about $1,200 to $1,500, depending on when you go. If you go during New Year's, like I went, you're going to spend about $1,500 round trip. If you go during off season, you probably spend about, I've seen flights as low as like $400 or $500 round trip to Rio. So, because remember, you got everybody going in and coming back at the same exact time, so they're just going to increase the prices for the flights. Different things like that. You can get creative with your routes. You can book a one-way on American, and then if you find an extremely inexpensive return on Copa Airways, you can come back on Copa. Fly out on Delta, come back on American, things like that. There's different ways you can kind of arrange your flights. All right, all right. So let's also go ahead and talk about, and obviously, once you fly in, let's talk about, before we talk about Rio Airport, let's talk about immigration, your visa. Um, do you need a visa to travel to Rio, Brazil? The answer right now today is you do not need a visa to travel to Rio, Brazil. What they're doing is, I think right now, and they've done this for the last like 3 or 4 years in a row, and they've never implemented it. But right now, in order to go to Rio, Brazil, and I'll go ahead and pull up this. What I like to do is anytime you're traveling anywhere international, especially for the first time, I like to go to the travel.state.gov website and actually look at the actual travel requirements for Rio, Brazil. It gives you any kind of like safety alerts. It tells you what the requirements are to travel, whether you need any vaccines or, how much money, if you're traveling into Rio, how much currency can you have before you need to declare it? What do you, as far as, do you need a visa before you get the need to have any kind of like migration form you need to enter online before you go, and when you exit like Colombia, the checkmate, things like that. So right now, basically, in order to go to Rio, you just need a valid passport. Must be valid on the day of entry. You need one page required for your entry stamp, so one blank page in your passport. And your passport, I think it needs to be, you have about 6 months, I believe, of validity on your passport. Don't quote me on that one, but I believe it's 6 months. Beginning on April 10th, and it's funny, when I asked a immigration officer when I was leaving Brazil if they were still going to uphold it, they're saying that you're going to have a visa when you come to Brazil. So back in the day when I went to Brazil in 2013, in 2012, actually I went for Carnival in 2012. In order to get a visa for Brazil, you actually had to apply ahead of time. I think I used Abriggs to get my Brazilian visa, but basically I had to get like two passport photos. You have to basically book your flight ahead of time, your hotel ahead of time. You need to show a copy of your bank statement to show that you've got like $1,000 or $2,000 in your bank account. You need to submit all that to basically the Brazilian embassy. They'll basically take one page out of your passport, put a photo in there, a whole, a visa, a paper, kind of like they take one page up and put like a paper visa in your side your passport, and then they'll send you your passport back, and then that visa is good for like 10 years. And I think there may even be like there may have been like a small fee to go along with it. Maybe it's like 50 or $100. And then I paid Abriggs because you can do it yourself, but I kind of like using a passport expediter to kind of do it for me to make sure I get it right so I don't get anything wrong. But they're saying that they're gonna, right now, there's no visa required to enter Brazil. You can just visa on arrival. You just show up. There's no cost for the visa, no nothing. Just go straight through immigration pretty seamlessly. And they're saying that on April 10th, they're going to go to the new, basically reinstating the old visa process that they had before. And I think they've said they were going to do that the last like 3 years in a row. And they've actually pushed it back every single time. And when I was actually leaving Brazil this go around, um, the um, the actual immigration officer, when I was actually going into GIG airport to fly back to Florida, he actually told me, he goes, "Yeah, I don't think they're going to do it." He said that there's a possibility that they might do it, but he didn't think they were going to do it. So, we'll see what happens with April 10th. What they try to do is they don't want to time it around the Carnival Festival because, you want the maximum amount of people coming into the country. So they're doing it April 10th because Carnival is like, I think March 30th through like April 7th or something along those lines. So that Carnival will be over and then it'll be just regular travel. So, right. Stop share for a sec. But yeah, you can go to travel.state.gov and you can do that for pretty much any country you want to go to. I think it's always good to check to see what the latest and the greatest are. Like I said, you're going to have, travel alerts. Is there any safety concerns, visa requirements, things like that. Just really kind of gives you, that's the most official way. So that way, you're getting the best information. All right. And then, when you go into, let's just say when you land into Rio Airport, what is the airport? You're going to land into GIG is the airport code. Go ahead and share screen one more time. and GIG, Rio International Airport. You're going to land, so one of the things to be prepared for is that, depending on what time you land, I think there's a lot of flights that fly at night and arrive at like between 7 and 9 in the morning from all different countries, probably coming from Argentina, coming from Latin America, Colombia, coming from Dominican Republic, coming from Mexico, coming from Canada. I think everybody flies because it's an 8-hour flight. They fly at night and they arrive in the morning. So when I got to immigration, it was completely packed. I mean, there's probably a few hundred people, lined up. So my immigration took, maybe it took me an hour to get through immigration on this trip, and I heard, Michael Stania, the person I met when I went to Brazil, flew her from Colombia.